I'm giving the presentation, Brick Walls, A Prolonged Search. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm obviously an adoptee. I'm an adoptee. I was born and raised here in Chicago. I started my search roughly almost 5 years ago. I'm going into my 5th year of search. It's been a long search. It's been a hard search, as it is for many people. My problems stem from bad information. I don't think it's necessarily that I'm a bad searcher or don't know how to search. It stems from a bunch of lies and a bunch of cover-ups that my birth mother made originally when she placed me. She gave false information, false names. Everything that I've worked 5 years for is basically worthless to me. I have an entire notebook that does me very little good. But I keep searching. And it is something that I am very involved in and feel strongly about. I'm a member of Truth Seekers in Adoption, which is one of the local groups here in Chicago. We're one of the bigger search and support groups for the Chicago area, and have been with them and searching with them for the past 5 years. Basically, what I'd like to do today is discuss a few topics that I have problems with, and that I know other people that I've talked with have run into the same problems, that have had lengthy searches. When they say that the average search takes roughly 90 days, or most people can complete within 3 months, and ours take 4, 5, 10, 15 years, there's a big difference. And there are a lot of things that I think we go through that these people who complete their searches overnight or in a short time frame don't have a chance to think about. I encourage discussion. Please feel free to comment on anything that's said. That's basically what I'd like the entire presentation to be, is some feedback from you all. How to cope with searching for someone we may never find. I can say personally that I have sat and have lost sleep night after night after night, saying to myself, you know, I may never find this person. I put all my energy day after day into my search, and I may never find. Why am I still searching? I don't know if I've ever come up with an answer for that, more than it's a drive that I still need to know. It's something that's extremely, extremely important to me, and that's probably what keeps me searching for, for someone that I may never find and may never run into. I don't know how someone else feels about that. Somebody, anybody, say something. This is nerve-wracking.
I know you get discouraged at times from this. Don't give up. I think that's some people, their searches come and go. They wane. Never give up. If the end comes, it's well worth it.
Definitely, and that's probably what keeps a lot of us searching, is that we go to support, we hear other people who have completed their searches, and we say, boy, that's great, and we kind of feel like, why isn't that me? Why isn't it my chance? But that probably is it. Hearing other people finish their searches gives us some drive to finish.
I guess I'm a stubborn, determined person that when I decide to do something, I stick with it. And I've worked with other searchers that were different from me, and they had trouble sticking with their search. Personally, it didn't bother me. I worked a year and a half, 1 to 8 hours a day. I now have 200 pounds of notes, and I look at that as like what it takes. If that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
Right.
Sometimes you can become too distracted with the support end of things, where it takes away from your energy from accomplishing something. I don't know. Do you notice other people? Does this tend to follow patterns that other people have in other aspects of their life?
I think it does take away from other things you have to do in your life. You get so wrapped up and so involved in what you're doing that what I do for a living is sacrificed. I work 80% of my salary in my occupation is based on commission, and is based on me performing. It is not just based on me coming to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, sitting there till 5 o'clock, punching the clock and going home. I get paid on performing. I don't perform, I don't get paid. And it's definitely affected my livelihood. I've often said that just completing my search alone will increase my earning potential by I can give myself a $10,000 raise next year just by completing search, because it does take up so much of my time.
Well, I would imagine that after you have exhausted all your possibilities and spent a few years at it, have you considered professional search?
I have considered a professional searcher. But I think that I don't consider I don't consider myself a search expert, but in the same case, I don't know if I consider myself that bad at what I'm doing. I really feel that I probably have exhausted every avenue. I have an adopted sister who is 2 years younger than I am. She came to me and asked me to do her search. I live out of state. And she said, gee, I see you doing it. Is it something that you would do for me? And I undertook this process about a year and a half ago, completed the search, spending $4 in 7 days from start to finish. So,
But yours is different.
very different.
There's something stuck.
Yeah, but you said she used false names, too.
Right, right. Every ream and piece of information that I have ever been given, found, stole, borrowed. We all know how we come across these things. I have, the typical, I'm a Catholic Charities baby. So I have the typical, yes. That's here, a big cheer for Catholic Charities. In fact, are there any professionals in the room before I badmouth Catholic Charities? Yes, so that's better. I wasn't.
And probably they were from another county entirely from where you were born or where you were adopted.
That's probably the case. Indications say that she was here in Chicago simply going to school. But the school that she has said that she went to, beating up Catholic Charities and getting that information from finally, the school's never heard of her by any name. I have a combination of 2 names.
What names do you mean? Because I know somebody who's got exactly the same problem, and her mother's name, supposedly, is Ruth Brown.
Still a common name. She used the name Peters and the name Nelson.
Are you talking about your own or your sister's?
My own personal
Your sister's
situation.
Reunited? Or did you find
Yes, 7 days.
I'm sure you know that Catholic Charities here would combine the birth mother and birth father's name and come up with a blended name.
And that's why I have 2 different names. She used one name going through the hospital, signing all of the paperwork was all done in one name. But when it came to my birth certificate, she used a different name for the birth certificate. But neither name checks out. Schools that my father went to, schools that she went to, none of it is correct. I have spent 5 years. I mean, we always feel good when we find a piece of information, when we get it to stick and work and say, yes, this is good information.
Did you check the first name with everybody that attended the school? The first
Oh,
name? For both of them?
Backward and forward.
Get occupational information on the grandparents.
Yes.
And?
Conveniently, a year before my birth, both of my grandparents died in a plane crash. So I have spent 4 years researching plane crashes. And if you think there is something more morbid that someone can research, there is nothing. The term deceleration trauma has a whole new meaning to you when you understand what happens when a plane hits the side of a mountain at 180 miles an hour. Deceleration trauma, that's right. It's not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop. Yeah.
Good takeoff, lousy landing.
Right.
Have you worked with the FAA on that?
Yes.
I was told that I'm still searching for a birth father after 5 years, and I was told he died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
I found some little guy in the back office of the FAA.
The-
I'm sure his name was.
The funny thing is, I pounded on the FAA, oh, we don't handle this, until I found one little guy in a back room. And I said, well, gee, I said, let me have, is there a listing of plane crashes? He said, of course there is. I said, well, is it confidential? Is it something maybe you could send out to me and I won't tell anybody your name? He says, no, try going to the library. I said, the library? He says, yeah, Encyclopedia Britannica. Look up a yearbook under disasters and it lists every plane crash for that year. But
And lists all the passengers that were killed?
the people that actually handle that aren't necessarily the FAA, but are actually the Who are the people that investigate the...
Those civil air narcotics or...
Investigation.
God, I've got the name with me, but there's another, begins with an E, but there is another group. They investigate all sorts. They are the people that are called out when a plane crashes, and they summarize their own report, and then they turn their findings actually into the FAA, and that's where the FAA gets their information.
But the victim assistance, do they have that?
That's non-released information. The funny thing is, in the year that it happened, that's information that's published in the newspaper. You open up a Tribune from that year, and it shows all the people that died. You won't see that anymore in a newspaper, but you have to go page by page.
We have a birth mother in our group, and her daughter found her, and the adoptive parents have been told that she was the child of, two professionals, of course, in this whole thing, but the parents have been killed in an airplane crash.
It's a popular story, huh?
But then they had adopted another child who conveniently was the daughter of two professionals who had been killed in an airplane crash. And when they started on the third adoptive daughter and said the same thing, she said, wait a minute, this is ridiculous.
Is this Catholic Charities?
I'm not sure if that one was or not. I know I went through Catholic Charities. So
Okay, it sounds like it.
Who's the social worker at Catholic Charities?
Well, they've obviously given me 4 different ones because I am such a... No, I'm such a burden. I was adopted out of Waukegan.
Oh.
And I beat on Catholic Charities of Chicago's doors for 2 years because I didn't know any better. And Fran Cashman tells me, well, gee, we don't have your stuff. I said, that's crazy. Until finally I found out that actually my records were kept in Waukegan. So then I beat on Waukegan's doors, and they've bounced me around between 3 different social workers because I'm such a burden. I'm the kind of person who calls a social worker 3-4 times a week. Hi, just thinking about you, just letting you know I'm alive. Don't really have anything other to say. Had a nice day yesterday, went out to eat at so-and-so, just to take up their time because I know their time is valuable, just to be a burden. And believe it or not, I found that that is effective with them to an extent. They just want to be rid of me.
Catholic Charities doesn't provide you with search services? They can't
No,
help you?
they don't have the time or the resources or the monies for these things.
They do in Florida. I just learned from a social worker who's here. Getting back to your grandparents, though,
Yes.
whether they're dead or alive, their occupational interests, hobbies, etc., should be of interest to you.
They are.
Back, investigation of what you want to do, all that kind of
Right.
stuff. And did they give you that?
Yes.
But is it the truth?
I don't know. I have not. I've tested the information and have no way of making it stick. I have no way of saying that, yes, this is good and true information. I do not have one piece or ream of information that I have been able to put through the test and research and come up with a positive answer confirming that, yes, this is good information. And I know that other people must be going through the same thing. That's why a lot of you are sitting here. And it is devastating. It is just, it takes everything out of you. It's, I have found 2 women who had the same name, living here in Chicago, were going to school here in Chicago. I've researched them, found these women, found one dead, found the other woman too old to have been her, but willing to adopt me. If indeed things don't work out. She thought that it was very honorable and that, well, since she had the same name, it wouldn't really be a problem. That it would just all fit in and we could play along with the story. And I said, well, send me out a financial statement and we can work on this. Another thing that I'd really like to talk about is finding the energy to keep searching. We spend so much time searching that nobody around us wants to hear about it anymore unless we go to a search or support group. Our families don't want to hear it. Our spouses don't want to hear it. Our friends don't want to hear it because they've heard it for year after year after year. And there's no end to it. And they're like, well, isn't it going to be done? My boss asked me that. I made special arrangements. I work every night. I don't get nights off. I work till 9 o'clock every night. And I have to take my one Monday night a month off to go to group. And he says, well, when is this going to end? Are you going to be finished with this soon? I said, it will never end. I will need Monday nights off, one night a month for the rest of my life at this rate. And I found that it's really difficult to get people to help you anymore. It's difficult to turn to a friend, to turn to someone outside of the triad and find help. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing that or...
Do any of the Catholic magazines carry ads of this sort? You know, the newspapers that are sent out to Catholic people?
Mhm.
Do any of them accept ads?
You mean like personal ads?
I don't,
looking for mothers type?
I don't think the Catholic Church is that far, is that advanced into glasnost right now. I think coming out of Latin was one thing, but I don't know if,
But couldn't you do an ad that wouldn't refer to, say, looking for a birth mother, some fake
Yeah.
story?
Are
that
you
you
Catholic?
Might be an
Is
idea.
your
Oh, yes.
Family Catholic? Are
Yes.
you sure they don't have any information?
positive. Yeah. They're sitting here with us today. They've just come in 450 miles to hear me do this. So, and that is a good portion of why I'm still able to search and why I've gone so long, is because they've both been behind me and supported me. They both have been here to support me, and I know that there are many other adoptees that would wish that they could tell their adoptive parents that they were searching, and wish that they could have the support that they need from their family. So,
Have you, Catholics kind of stick together sometimes. Have you gone to a Catholic agency in another diocese that probably has more open views on search to see if you could elicit the cooperation of a search worker at Catholic Social Service, like in Peoria, for example, or Bloomington?
the thing is, I think I have beat on Catholic Charities so much over the last years that I feel that I've really gotten almost all of the information they have, with the exception of the only identifying information I really don't have from them are her last address, which they call a non-permanent address, which would lead me to believe in an unwed mother's home, and my grandparents' names.
You have
So-
a baptismal certificate?
Yes.
You're adopted?
They read it to me over, I got a person by accident to read it to me over the telephone.
Have you contacted that parish? Because priests will talk if they remember.
It's
Holy Name Cathedral.
that's where I was baptized, is
Yeah.
Holy Name
So
Cathedral.
they probably would remember, because all the Catholic charities babies are baptized in Holy Name.
Everybody was. We went
Yeah,
from St.
so
Vincent's
it's
Orphanage.
just a blur of it.
This means nothing to people who don't live here in Chicago.
But
I feel sorry.
Your name will be, it'll be her name on the baptismal certificate.
The person's name on the baptismal certificate was a social worker.
No, but your mother, you're looking for your mother's real name.
I have that,
Oh, you do, I'm sorry.
right?
So you're looking for just how to find her.
How to find her. Yeah, that's okay.
Why are your Catholic Charities records in Waukegan instead of Chicago?
Because I was placed out of Waukegan. I was born in Cook County. I was born at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Cook County and placed out of Waukegan because my family at the time lived in Lake County.
Well, you know,
You're a Lake County adoption.
Yes.
Chicago, Kansas City, and Denver attracted so many people who came from who knows where
Right.
to have babies, and that's
Right. Well, she claims that she was going to school here. She
It
says,
was an unwed mother's home. Will they not divulge any information to you?
no, never,
Have you tried?
never. It's no longer in existence. They were lost. The records were lost in the fire.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Everything's burned.
The fire.
Those records,
Those records are
somebody's
turned
done.
over to
They're
someone.
Catholic charities. The St. Vincent's records are Catholic charities.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you try for your medical records?
Yes, and I loused that up. I was a bad searcher before I joined. I did not know about search and support groups and thought that was the obvious first place to go. I didn't even realize that we didn't even know the hospital I was born in up until 2 years ago. We had thought I was born at one hospital. No, funny thing was I did a AMA report on the doctor who's still practicing at 70-some years old. And he says, no, I never practiced there. I practiced at such and such a hospital. And I immediately contacted them, and I did not have her first name at the time, so I wrote as Mrs. James Miller, requesting information for, my name at the time was Peters, and they quickly wrote back to me and said, Mrs. Miller, is your first name James? And were on to me immediately. I went into their, I'm in the process of that.
Yeah.
I went into, we're trying another method, another non-talked about method. But I'm sorry.
Not to belabor the point, just to make sure you tried everything. I found I was adopted through Catholic Charities in New York, and a similar problem. I couldn't find the write records, but, you know, if you can go and see your, the entry in the baptismal register where you were baptized, they'll give your mother's, she was not a Catholic, they'll give the church of her baptism, which is real important. Because if she remained Catholic, a faithful Catholic, which no doubt she was.
Right.
First year,
Oh, definitely.
that she would have probably married then in the Catholic Church. And if that's so, on her baptismal register will be recorded the church of her marriage.
Right.
That's how I found my mother.
That's interesting. I never thought of that. Thank you.
Because she has to prove that she was baptized, she has to
She
write
has to
where she
prove
was
that she was not
baptized.
married.
Yeah,
And
like, yeah.
and that's how they keep an accurate
That's true.
record.
Mhm.
Because there's somebody in our group found, after it took about a year, they finally hit on that method, and that's how they located the people they were looking for, was by getting, what you just said.
I want to get back to where other people find support, and where other people go when your spouses and when other people just don't want to hear about it anymore. Where did you go while you were searching, or where do you go?
I never told anybody. A lot easier. You just don't discuss it. That way they don't ask you.
And talk where
The rest of life.
but where did you vent your frustrations, or where did you go to talk to someone?
That was it. I just didn't talk about it. And because people have been very negative. The 2 times in my life I ever expressed I was interested in finding anything, people were so hostile that I just learned not to mention it. And after you find and you tell them you found, then the same people that were hostile are happy for you.
Sure. Sure. How many people are still searching? Okay, so there's still a good portion of everybody in here. That's good.
I was going to say, I found my mother within 8 months, but she was deceased. And then wished to find my birth father, and I spent a year looking for siblings too, but I've spent almost 2 years looking for my father. And it took me 4 months to wangle the last name out of the agency because I could not ask her. I mean, there was no fairness to me. I could not walk up to my mother and say, well, who's my father? And she wasn't there to ask. So I spent 4 months wangling the last name out of the agency, then another 6, 7 months trying to get the first name out of the agency and where he was from and guessing and just running through genealogies of that name. And then finally found the first name and where he was from, but having done a lot of exhaustive research in that province in Canada, there's no one by that name ever existed in that province in Canada. So we think that my mother gave the wrong name or gave his nickname or wasn't sure of his first name and just made up the first name. So now I'm back at square zero again, without a first name again.
Anybody have an idea of why their search is taking so long? And what's keeping someone from finishing?
Sealed records.
Sealed records. Sealed records.
Waiting too long to start.
Yeah.
Mine's a military situation, trying to get military information.
I-
That's how I'm coming to support groups. I found my birth mother 13 years ago and did it on my own and didn't know how to do it. And there weren't any support groups where I live. And 3 years ago, I joined a support group, but I found even by coming here, the networking, now I just got another clue on how to maybe find them. But the networking is the really great key.
I've had trouble with part of the information on my birth father. I've had the same problems. It's amazing how military records don't exist either.
The fire of 73.
Well, the man.
Fire in St. Louis.
Well, the,
72, 3 or, something. But
that's right. That's where their warehouse is St. Louis.
Fires in the floods.
I wonder if that's what happened because, well, the funny thing is the man who I think I'm looking for as my father is an 8-time decorated Medal of Congressional Honor winner, Purple Heart 3 times, decorated by the Vietnamese government 4 times.
So he's younger.
He's deceased.
Well, you ask a 20-year-old clerk in a courthouse that you want records that are, well, for me, a lot older than that.
Right.
Just you ask for 20, 25-year-old records, and they have a fire, they have a flood, they don't want to be bothered to look them up.
Right.
So you can imagine, when you're really older, what their attitude is.
Are you saying you have the information on your father? I got lost.
I'm speculating. speculating off of information I have, I'm speculating that this man who died, whose name appears, is my father.
Because I had sent to the cemetery association, because all I had was a name and a rank. And they sent back that this man was buried in the National Cemetery and the serial number of tons.
Well, there were books with pages of information written about him and how brave he was and all this other stuff. Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's in the actual books you can pick up in the library.
You've contacted the next of kin?
Yes.
And
His parents are both deceased. Father, I guess, years ago. Mother, just within the last 5 to 6 years. He has 4 other brothers and sisters. I have contacted I believe his oldest sister, who is now a retired lieutenant commander for the Navy. Okay, so how she really has no interest in hearing how her brother, her war hero brother, is the father of a, excuse the expression, but bastard child. Right, she wants absolutely nothing to do with that. I talked with her about 2 years ago.
His high school classmates might know who he dated.
That's what I'm trying to get an idea. I'm contemplating now, and my search now heads towards other brothers and sisters of his. I'm going to contact her once more and give her another shot at talking to me. Yeah, now that she's had a little while, I'm contemplating contacting her again. Either that or searching for other members of the family and maybe getting them to tell where did he go to school, this type of thing. Because she blatantly lied to me. I caught her in a lie.
Have you thought of sending your adopted parents in to talk to the agency personally?
Have I thought of sending?
Your adopted parents to talk to the agency. I sent my adopted parents sent the waiver in and the whole bit, but it turns out when they marched in person, they got warm.
Really? No, I haven't done that, and maybe I could.
And they had an appointment the next day. I had to wait 6 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Next day.
My search, I waited too long. Too many years. There was a barbecue, and all the records were burnt by an owner.
A barbecue.
Yeah, my father, I found my mother 5 years ago. It took me 8 hours to find her. That was no problem. The only thing of it is, Mama don't know what Papa's last name was. You know, so I had a first name and I had a last name. So I have to call people up that worked with this man 42 years ago and say, hey, do you remember so-and-so 42 years ago? And then I found out that the man that owned the place where they all worked at got into financial problems and decided that he'd burn off all the records and in the process burnt up all the personnel records too. So I got no date of birth and 3 possible last names on Papa. But mine was the same case as yours. The Catholic Charities had the wrong name. They put down the wrong name. My father and my birth certificate actually has the wrong name on it. My father.
I'm curious for people who have run up against brick walls, how many people have used psychics and what their feelings are about it? And I can share some of my experience if you want.
Well,
Maybe
you have. I'll comment. I'll comment first. Born and raised as a Catholic, there are no such things as palm readings or psychic readings or Ouija boards.
So it was a non-option.
Yeah, for me it is, and I think even if I decided to step on that and say, well, yeah, I'm Catholic, all fine and good, but hey, I need to get this done no matter what religion I am. Personally, I'm a non-believer. I'm a non-believer.
Go ahead and tell.
Yes, everybody close their eyes. Now, I'll tell you something that'll work better. It worked for me in a way that I wouldn't have believed. Some of you have heard me on this. Last summer, I got so frustrated by this whole thing. I decided to make good on what I thought was a very outside chance, and I made an appointment with a registered hypnotherapist, someone who specialized in regression. And I went to her and I said, I'm interested in trying to find out more about my adoption. And so she said, all right, we'll see what we can do. Now, hypnotism is something that bothers people because although we are always in trance, according to Milton Erickson, we don't like to admit it. Anytime, for example, you're sitting here and spacing out, not paying attention to what Jim is saying, or thinking about something else, you're in trance. And there are light trances and there are deep trances. Everybody can be hypnotized by one of 8 or 10 methods. The method that she used and that you can use yourself very easily if you wish to is simply a method of absolute relaxation. She first put me into a sample trance for a few minutes, and we came out of it, and then we went into a trance that lasted 2 hours. And what she asked me to do is to pick one of 3 methods, either an escalator going downward, an elevator going downward, or perhaps a stairway going downward. And that was simply a means of judging where I was in terms of the trance. So we began, I kind of liked elevators. She said, that's fine. And she said a few things beforehand. She said, you'll always be conscious you're in the room, you'll hear the air conditioning system, you'll hear the birds outside the door. You'll be perfectly aware that you're here, but the hypnosis is a means of concentrating your attention and getting rid of all the stuff that's piled on top of the information that you want to receive. So she began with the elevator at the 20th floor. And as we went from 20 to 19, I relaxed. And her voice simply said that. And as you go from 19 to 18, you will relax twice as much as you relaxed between 19 and 18. And we started going down, and somewhere between 11 and 2, I don't remember the floor. When we got to the bottom, I began seeing sort of grayish-black swirling clouds. And I said, and occasionally there was a yellowish blob that would come forward. And she said, perhaps those are faces. This was suggestion, of course. Perhaps these are faces that may clarify you as you relax more. Well, suddenly, I was present in my crib. I knew I was about 2 years of age. The first thing that struck me was that I had been put there, but I hadn't done anything wrong. And it was a bright sunny day. It was the middle of the day. It was not at night. I was standing fully dressed. Somehow I had the idea that my adopted grandmother was in the next room crocheting. I didn't know I was there. I don't think I got much more out of that first session. And when I came out of it, I thought, why in the world, why this strange thing? I was about 2 years of age. I somehow knew that it had to have been in April or May. And the next session, we did the same thing. And I suddenly realized that it had to be a Thursday, because I was now out in a little store that my parents had, a little restaurant, out in Racine County. And it had to be a Thursday because the woman who works for us wasn't there, and my adopted mother was behind the counter. It had to have been during April and May because I knew my sister wasn't there. She was up in college. These just came as knowledge, not as having to think through. It was just like, that's the way it is. And I'm told in a trance, that's the way the information comes, as clear, accurate information. It doesn't come somehow through a period of rationalization. And it was also a case of what's called spontaneous removal. You're watching yourself in the scene. You could also be present in the scene and seeing through your eyes, but I wasn't. I was seeing myself in the crib. But then I heard the first part of the story. I'm in the restaurant. My adopted father has a dark shirt and a cap on, and he's holding me in his right arm. And in comes a woman who says, and she gave her name, that's still something I'm checking on, I'm the boy's mother, I've just come to see if he's all right. My dad said, oh, for heaven's sakes. My adopted mother made her usual, oh, kind of expression. It's just so clear. And my adopted father said, I think I better put him in the next room. That's when I was put in back in the crib. Now, in subsequent trances, I would, just to finish that part of the story, my adopted father came to get me, he showed me a box from Gimbel's in Milwaukee. And he said, she brought this for you. And I said, what is it? And he says, it's a shirt. And he opened it up and showed it to me. I haven't searched my mind further, but I think that was the occasion when I was told of my adoption. Now, I came out of that trance and I let my niece know about this, and she said, of course, I know that shirt. That's the one you're wearing in the photo on your third birthday. And I have a photo taken and dated March 3rd, 1938, with this little shirt on that my mother brought.
Well,
I was also present when I was born. I'm convinced of it. In another trance, I was in the hospital. There was a nun nurse dressed all in white, and I heard the doctor say, it's a boy, take him in the next room quickly. I'm convinced of it. Because these things emerge from trance so clear and so without our usual mental processes. There's some other things. And a friend of the family later told me, oh, I searched my mind. She's 94 now. And she said, yes, someone did come about you, and the Peters were very frightened. Your parents were very frightened because someone had come about you. Another family's friend said they were very afraid somebody was going to snatch you back. And I thought that was just fiction. So my birth mother showed up when I was 2. I saw her. And then as I told some people, I was sitting down, I seem to be monopolizing this time. Down at the 5th Regional Conference, the AAC in Manfred, Traverse City, was talking about open adoption. And he was saying how wonderful it was, the child would know it's both families. And I was sitting there feeling very sorry for myself because I didn't have that advantage. And suddenly it popped in my head, my mother was in that Sterling once after that when I was 9 or 10. And she was introduced to me as a teacher from Milwaukee. I had been told that. And she said to me, maybe someday you'll be a teacher too. Well, that's what I became. I'm convinced she visited twice, and I got that out of not only the trance, but the receptivity to the trance. And as I told some of you, those 2 incidents were used as evidence that my mother would want me to know what is in my record. And Wednesday I saw the judge, and I think she's going to open my record on the basis.
fantastic.
I don't know about the psychic, but your head has got stored a lot of information with all this recent stuff packed on top of it. And by going to a reputable hypnotherapist, you can, get rid of all the contemporary problems of whether your car needs a new brake job and all this other stuff that's piled on top, and focus down on that early period. And that if you think back, well, I don't remember when I was 2, or I don't remember when I was 6 months, you'd be surprised with it. I think you can get out of it.
Well, the good part is it's probably covered by your insurance.
But do you remember her name when she came in and said her name? Do you remember the name she stated?
She said it was Elda Anderson. And I know there's an Elda Anderson. I don't know whether that's wish projection on my part because I knew the name beforehand. But I'm inclined to believe that in trance, your psyche doesn't lie to you. I said, did I make it up? And the hypnotherapist says, everybody says that. You don't make up what's in trance. It just comes out like a phonograph record. So I'm inclined to believe that information. I'm still checking on that. And it's not a spooky process. The room is perfectly lit.
We had a young gal in her 30s go down to Phoenix to a psychic who had done work with adoptees. And although she didn't feel she got any information that specifically helped her in the search, when she did find, she said the information that she was given by that psychic was just unbelievably true about various aspects of her family. It was kind of interesting.
I think one thing about using psychics, and probably the nice thing about a hypnotherapist, psychologist, is that they have some references and some background. One of the things I think about psychics is that there really are a lot of quackos. And I also think, and I'm not necessarily a believer or a disbeliever, but I think there's also a lot of energy and a lot of reality that isn't written down.
That's true.
Let me just tell you briefly how I use it. I had been searching for a birth father and had off of the non-identifying, I had identified him. And I was 99% sure that I had the guy, but he was dead. He had died 25 years ago, which was consistent with the story. And I was obviously very worried about why he died, because I was very close to his age. And I called his brother, because I thought, you know, if he had known about me, maybe he told his brother. And his brother said, you know, my brother was kind of a free and easy guy, and I haven't a clue. And I said, but he talked to me, and it was a real warm conversation. It lasted a long time. And he said, I said, I'm sorry I have to put you through this, but I can't speak. You know, I can't ask your brother this myself. And he said, well, maybe you can. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he said, well, I spoke to him several years ago through my psychic. Now, my birth father was a dentist, and his brother is a doctor, and their father was a faith healer. And he said that there's a strong line in the family of using other kinds of energy. And he was talking to me about how my birth grandfather did some healing with the laying on of hands. And I thought, what the hell? and I have been raised in a family, my mom is kind of believes in funny stuff. And so it wasn't weird to me. And so I did a lot of checking through my community. And everyone I talked to said the same person. And so finally I went to see him. And I wasn't scared in the least. You know, he was a very fat, roly-poly man without shoes on. And he kind of led me back to the sun porch. And he said, have you ever done this before? And I said, no. And he said, well, then we'll have fun. And he replied, he turned on the cassette. He said, which was lovely. I didn't need to remember what he said to me because the cassette was there. And he got in his reclining chair and he did his jerking around and went into whatever it was that he went into. And it was, the lovely part of it was that I could ask him the questions that I could imagine my family with. You know, was this the guy? What about this? What about that? And he had answers for me. And he said, yes, I'm sure you got the right man, but he didn't know. And you know, it's all supposition, but it felt very right to me. And I could put that search to rest. That yeah, this man was my birth father, and I'll never see him, but that's okay. It was a real nice finishing, and I didn't need to go racking my brain.
Right.
And I can now say this man is my birth father, not
Right.
although I'm sure. He also gave me some other real good information about, I ran out of time, or I ran out of questions about my birth father, so I had a list of other things to use up the hour in a most efficient way. And he gave me some very good information. I asked him, for example, I was unhappy at work, and he said, don't worry, things will get better in 6 months. And 6 months later, my boss said, how would you like to work over here? And so, I mean, there were things that were real. But just him acknowledging what I thought, you know, he went through his ethereal file or wherever he went, really felt right. Really felt that I could put my search to rest and say, this is my guy. But maybe other people don't do that. And maybe part of it was that there's some genetic okayness about using this modality.
Right.
It just felt comfortable.
I think for a little bit, if someone has something or a problem that they'd like to talk about, that maybe we could do that for a bit. I have some other things that I want to talk about, but maybe there are some things that some people would like to ask.
I live in Michigan now, but I was adopted in your city.
Right, your hypnotist though was in
Michigan.
How does one go about finding a reliable hypnotist, I wonder?
Well,
I think that's right.
you can find hypnotists listed in the Yellow Pages probably, and they are usually certified. That is, they have some training, they'll have their diplomas on the wall. She had an office, she didn't have beads and
Crystal ball.
Crystal ball or anything of the kind. It's not a mysterious process at all. There isn't any mumbo jumbo, and I can do it myself now if I take the time. I can go in trance and probably get more. And in fact, there's the question: if she visited twice, could she visit more often? But look in the Yellow Pages, and then perhaps talk to somebody. Say, do you think you can do this, and try it? Don't try every hypnotist within 10 miles. You've got to go back, 3, 4, 5 times. But you can feel whether this person is honest and is trying to help you. And if after 4 or 5 times it doesn't seem to be going anywhere, let it go. But you see, you're going in. I asked her why I got information like the way I did. And she said, well, you didn't come to me to ask me about the time you first went to the baseball game, Major League Baseball game. Your psyche knew you wanted information about your adoption. So when you went into trance, that's what it began to tell you. And I think that makes sense.
Someone else? Yes?
I just wanted to make a comment about having other people research for you. I'm with Search Group and a consultant now myself, but when I first started working on the search, I sent feelers out and I contacted another library in another state and had them do research on birth on a certain day in their city. They gave me a name of supposedly the only birth. And so I went with that, worked on it for almost 2 years to find, it was wrong information. Do your own contacting with those types of things.
Right.
Give things on interlibrary loan or whatever you're working with. Those things are available on microfilm and you can get
Right.
interlibrary loan. And I wish I had done that. It would have saved me 2 years.
Well, I like the idea of doing my own work. I don't know, I'm very... I like the fact that people come and give me advice and say, have you tried... could I be doing this, or what did you do that worked? So, I mean, there's a little bit of search consultant in everyone, I think, that has been doing this for a while. After a while, you become somewhat of an authority just from doing it. It's like anything else. But I think I've always, for one reason or another, just have wanted to do my own search and just have felt very, very strongly. I've always made my own contacts and phone calls. When I found these 2 women who I believed were my mother in each individual occasion, I did make the phone call myself. I did not use the intermediary, which is sometimes suggested and which is commonplace, I guess, in our group. I contacted my sister's grandparents, her birth grandparents initially. That's who I found was her parents, and I made the call. So I've always felt strongly about doing things myself. But now I'm running into the fact that, what am I missing? Maybe because I am so enthralled and wrapped up and involved in what I'm doing, there are people sitting on the outside looking in that can see things that I'm not doing. Like, for instance, the baptismal, thank you, the baptismal record. I mean, I got the information that I needed off of that I thought was there, and then put that aside and didn't research it any further. And obviously, there's another avenue that I could pursue that could definitely help. So I think there's a need for that. I think there's sometimes you just need to stop, and I've got my whole notebook with me that is this thick, and I think it might do me some good at this point, being that we do come to points of where we just feel we can't get any further, to take the information, show it to another objective party, and say, here's what I've done, what haven't I done, or what can I do?
Don't you do that at your group meetings, though? I mean, you have like search workshops where you can toss it out and, get the input from other people.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody needs to actually sit down and study it.
Right.
It's a lot of work.
I just have reams of documents and things. Yeah. Right.
Well, if it comes month after month, he's
Well, in the forum that we hold our group is rather large. I think Jack will contest. He's a member. How many people do we get for the average meeting?
80 to 100
people.
And we're in Chicago here, and about 50 of those, usually about half, will be people first time. And
So-
because we've had social workers come in undercover to try and find out search techniques, we no longer do
We don't.
search technique work
Yeah,
there.
we do not discuss search.
I found one definite case where it did happen and the door got closed because a worker did come in, said she was interested or whatever, and then went back and found out that door, closed the door up.
Right.
So we don't, all the search help is done on a one-to-one basis over the phone with a search consultant, somebody helping you, somebody that's really done searches to the nth degree.
Yeah.
But the meetings are generally to support.
Yeah.
And,
Any
seems
name
workable.
of that person?
It's common. It's happened to us. It's happened to us a few times,
Just last month.
and it's terrible.
A local
down names and looking around at the big city.
Yeah. Yeah, and with that type of, and with the type of crowd that we get, it is very difficult to control, because a good portion of the people that we do have in our meetings are first-time meeting people. So we have never seen these people before, and we have no idea who they are.
We actively ask professionals to come to the meetings too. I mean, social workers and agency people and stuff like that.
Not that they come.
We'll be getting them now and then, so, and they walk out with open eyes and can't believe this is being discussed or whatever openly, so.
Jim, I don't know what the regulations are in this state, but in the state I come from, which is New Hampshire, I was doing some legwork for a California young man, adoptee, and in the local library was volumes and volumes of almost daily activities in the Catholic Church. Now, I'm not Catholic, so I wasn't relating to this, but I looked in all these books, and here's all these births, deaths, marriages to do with Catholic people in that city or town or nearby.
Mhm.
Churches and hospitals in that town or city.
Hmm.
And it was all wide open. Now, our vital statistics are closed for anyone
Right.
obtaining copies up to 75 years ago, other than, unless it's from yourself.
Right.
You know, you're obtaining your mother's or
Right.
next of kin. And here's all this information sitting here in books to do
Yeah.
with this whole city.
Yeah. I think different states are very different. I can remember,
Volumes of things.
I can remember Chicago is kind of funny that way, or this area is very funny, and people are very closed-mouthed as far as anything. The Archdiocese of Chicago is among the foundation of the church in the entire country, based out of Chicago. Chicago is is considered a hub for the Catholic Church. So for that type of thing, I think would be few or far between. Whereas you could walk into Oklahoma. I can remember my parents coming back from a trip to Oklahoma and opening up a phone book and seeing that you have a person's name, what he does for a living, where he works, and his phone number. And it's, you know, right? Half the people living in the city of Chicago don't even have their phone numbers published, let alone what they do for a living and who their grandparents are. You know, right? So that's a very different.
Doesn't Chicago have polls?
No, they stopped publishing them after 1928.
No, there's a 50, early, one in the early 50s.
Yeah.
There's a searcher in Denver named Sandy, Elder, E-L-D-E-R.
I've talked to Sandy.
Oh, okay.
I've talked to Sandy. She's a nice lady.
I'm sure this is very elementary, but I'll just say it anyway because it might give somebody hope in this room. I have a friend of mine whose birth mother who gave birth at the same hospital that you were born at in Chicago at Catholic Charities. She was from Rockford and released from Rockford. And you know, I wasn't really sure how to help her in Illinois, and I knew it was going to be hard for her, but I obviously gave her the information to go and register with ISRR. And 2 years later, she was reunited with her daughter through the Catholic service, and her daughter was out in California.
We just had in our own group, didn't we, last month? Soundex had a match for us just last month.
Yeah, so there is hope out there.
Oh, yeah.
I have a friend who was left on a doorstep in Rockford who searched about 20 years. And finally, through Florence Fisher at Alma, she went national. And last time I talked to her, it looks like she has a lead on her.
Taylor Pavlova?
Yeah.
She not only has a lead, she met her sister on
Good.
Tuesday,
Worked.
and People Magazine is doing a story.
It
on
worked.
it.
Hey.
Sometimes you're tempted to give up, but Pat didn't give up.
Well,
She
she's
had
a
a
quiet
terrible
woman, and she put herself on television, and someone called in and mentioned that her mother had, before she died, mentioned she left a baby in Rockford, and they were tested, and they're
Right, and if the information
I
came
don't
from
know the
somewhere
other-
in Indiana, a person, you know, the
well, they were,
mother was from
the
Indiana,
birth family's from Indiana, somehow left and went to Rockford.
left her in a basket on a doorstep in Rockford.
She's left on her porch, yeah.
That is one issue that I did want to talk about. Someone who has been searching 20 years, someone whose search does go that long. Has anybody determined when they feel they really want to stop searching? Has anybody? I've gone on record and have been quoted as saying, someone asked me that once, and I've become a person that's recognized at our meetings. I said, Jim, when are you going to stop? You've been searching for 5 years, and this could go on another 5, it could go on another 10, it could go on another 20. When will you stop searching? And I guess my simple quote, and my simple answer to that is that I will probably stop searching the day that they throw the last shovel of dirt in my face. And that will be the day that my search will finally be over and ended, if I don't find other ways. Has anyone else set a time limit or said, if I don't find by X date, I'm going to shelf this, put it away, and...
It's not the same as your life goes on.
Yeah.
We have a birth father that searched until he was 74 and finally found what it was like about 47 years.
I have a question, that you are a Catholic Charities baby, and I am too. How do you feel about the church per se? I mean, how, are you still as religious? Do you still
You see, now you're catching me in a bad spot because you see, between the two of my parents, they're still big enough to spank me if I come up with something bad here. So,
Quit beating your wife question.
if I quit being my, how do I feel? I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying, because,
How do I feel about the Catholic Church?
yes, because most of, like, my friends were Catholic charity babies. And, you know, we get into this, and we get into, you know, trying to search, and we find out that, you know, the church, who is supposed to be, you know, like, not ever do anything wrong, is lying out their teeth. And so then, you know, we go to church on Sunday morning and go up to communion, and somewhere along the line, faith goes out the door.
I don't think my faith has failed me as much as I just have personally. I don't know if I have not been going to church. Jesus, I'm going to get hit from over there. No, I have not been going to church. I have not been a practicing parishioner. But I don't think that really has to do with me being bitter towards Catholic Charities. I think I'm bitter towards Catholic Charities as an agency more than I'm bitter to them. I could be going through the same thing that Kim has gone. I've known Kim for years, and the agency that Kim has been involved with makes Catholic Charities look like Open House USA. They lie and just play little giddy games, and it's disgraceful. I don't think I fault the church. I have my own views on the church and what I think about them today, but I think you could probably find faults with any religion if you picked apart a Lutheran religion, if you picked apart a Jewish religion, and you could find fault in anyone's religion. And I don't fault the Catholic Church as much as I fault the system. It's agencies and it's the system. It's really not the church as much as it is the agency. It's just a form of the church.
Like any other system.
Right.
Your faith isn't in that, your faith is in God or whatever.
Right. And they, you know, they're supported. They're supported obviously by the Catholic Church, but when it boils down to it, they're an agency as anyone else is. And I don't find fault with them. I really don't. Our representative from Catholic Charities is leaving the door right now.
My agency really couldn't care less about anything. You know, they were going to protect it to the letter of the law, no matter what you did. If you threatened suicide, if you came in with a gun and put it to your head, threatened to blow your brains out if they didn't give you the information, they wouldn't give you the information.
What agency is that?
Illinois Children's Home and Aid. And my caseworker has recently left the agency because she could not deal with the way they were treating people. They came back. I can't say. It was a very, you know, there's a lot of stuff that went on with me that they had closed my file completely forever. They closed it a while ago, but they made it plain that they want absolutely no contact from me anymore, and it's over, it's ended, it's in.
So you're entitled to non-identified, did you get the non-identified?
Oh, I've got all the non-identified one, I've got 11.
She's found her birth mother.
I found my birth
The
mother.
research is for birth mothers completed.
And I had to find 5 siblings, and I'm still looking for my father.
Have you found any of your siblings?
I found all 5 of them. But thanks to no help from the agency.
Oh, no.
They said they do a search for you, but I mean, all they do is write letters, and the original letters that they wrote to find my birth mother to people to contact, with the same last name and stuff, I had to tell her how to do that and come up with the names to send out and all this stuff. But they sent it out on agency letterhead and agency envelopes. These confidential letters, this information that she couldn't give to me, she'd give to perfect strangers on agency letterhead. And I just thought, that has got to be the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Here perfect strangers can have access to my mother's most private secrets. Thank God she's dead.
Because they
And
have
I
the
can't.
last name.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Could you have used her last name and had a letter sent to your home address?
Yeah, well,
I mean,
I
no,
eventually
not-
found
just
her, it's kind of a fluke how I found her, because I gave her a list of names in Michigan. Because I'd been looking in Illinois, thinking she was from Illinois, when she was in Michigan. And she had all the information, because I was at a dead end, they wouldn't give me her first name. I did not have her first name. I had a name that was wrong. And so she sent all these letters out on agency letterhead, and it took her 2 months to do that, 3 months. So finally, my adopted mother got real frustrated one night. She just called a bunch of people on that list. Well, one lady she called was a really nice adopted mother who had gotten a letter from the agency on the agency letterhead, knew everything that was what it's about. She read my mother the entire letter with all the identifying information in it. Lydia had said everything about my mother in this letter. And so the name on the top of the list that I had given the caseworker was my mother's half-brother, birth half-brother, and all Lydia would have had to do is call the top name on the list. Would have taken her 5 minutes. She would have found out my birth mother was dead. It would have taken her, the search would have taken 5 minutes. And in other words, it took her 3 months to do a 5-minute search, because she had the information right in the file, because my mother called the brother. And then the agency wouldn't speak to me for 2 months because I had gone over their head and contacted the
Yeah, they tortured her.
Too bad
Tortured
that
her.
my mother was dead. It's just too bad. I heard 10 minutes of harassment from my caseworker the day after I found out that she was dead.
Excuse me, am I understanding you right? They sent out a letter to everybody with the same name, telling the whole story to them? Isn't it awful?
That's right.
Talk about
privacy. An agency letter.
I'd be tempted to go to some relation reporter in the newspaper to tell that story.
Right, right, right.
It's just because of my close relationship with my caseworker that had nothing to do with the agency. And she's done me a couple favors that I feel that ought to be kept confidential, but I just thought, how rude. Here she's like perfect strangers, the whole story. Yeah, I can't have that information when it's all intended to me, and I would probably keep it a lot more secret than they would.
Let me stop this just a second. Am I losing people because we need a 10-minute break for people to do what they need to do, or can we keep going? Okay, it's unanimous. No one else leave.
I'm just wondering, I found my mother a few years ago, and I think I know who my father is, and but I keep on putting it off. I was wondering if anybody else has the same experience of finding yourself sort of without any energy to complete things, and especially when you have the information. When I was looking for my mother, if I had this information, like I did then, there was no problem. I would just follow through on it. But I find now, as time goes on, it begins to drag out more and more, and I find myself more and more tired. And I wonder if anybody else feels the same way, and what you do with that.
Let's hear from, please.
First of all, I forgot what the first thing that comes to mind is in searching for my birth father and almost finding him, contacting the wrong man, it occurred to me I had his name for 6 months. It had taken me 4.5 hours to find my birth mother and call her. But 3 months to find my birth father, and when I didn't want to move again, my birth mother is an absolute stranger. And I didn't want, I wanted that fantasy birth father if I was going to get this such a birth mother. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I'm a search consultant. And I've, on several occasions, given people a list of names. On one occasion, I gave a birth mother a list of 6 names, and I said, one of these is definitely your daughter. Do you have any feelings for a neighbor? And she picked the right one. Another occasion, I gave an adoptee a list of 5 names, and I said, one of these might be your birth mother, and one of them might not. I said, do you have a feeling about a name? And she took the name. She said, no, not really. And then we got to the point in the search where we were going to have to call these people out because there was just nothing else to do. And so she said, oh, I'll do it. And she never did. She finally came back to me and she said, I just don't have any feelings about any of these names. And of course I called. It wasn't any of them. And when I had my birth father's name for 3 months, and I contacted this man, it was the wrong name. And I wonder now, was that delay because I knew that I had this feeling it wasn't right?
You didn't have enough confidence.
Yeah.
I actually had complete confidence in him. I had pictures of me and I was just like it.
Feelings that were holding you back.
But I had this gut instinct that something was wrong, I think. I mean, that's just one theory.
Right.
But on the other hand, I'm real aware that I'm still searching for my birth father, but I'm real aware that I don't want to do this man.
I think adoptees do have that instinct, because I know a woman that was doing a search, and she had 5 birth certificates of the birth mother with 5 exact names, and they had 5 exact names of their mothers. I mean, there was like 5 birth certificates that was exactly like, but they were different years and different dates on it. Okay, but the names were exactly, and she picked it out of 5 and hit the right one the first time around. And I picked out my grandmother's obituary out of hundreds of books, and I just took a year and I opened the page and it was there.
I think on the energy, 5 years has drained me. I have very little energy. You've given me this wonderful piece of advice and have been extremely helpful, and I'll probably sit on it for 6 months. Now I won't do a thing about it and go about my life saying, oh God, I can't finish my search, and I'm worthless, and I'll never finish my search. But I won't get off my duff and go downtown and do anything about it. I won't take the time to write a letter. I hate to write. I don't know if anybody read the syllabus. I mean, it killed me to write those 2 paragraphs for this thing. I hate to write. I'll pick up a telephone and talk to somebody for 4 hours. But I hate to write, and I have become the world's largest procrastinating adoptee. And I think it's because it's taken so long. When I first started my search, I went night and day. I got in the office at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd get in early before my boss got there to use the telephone. And fortunately, I had a job where I sat at a desk and I had access to a phone and that type of thing. So I was fortunate that I wasn't doing welding or something that enabled me not to do that. Or legitimately, I would be out of work. I would not have a job if it wasn't a job where I sat and the phone rang for me and the people could call me and I could contact them. Because I would go days and my boss would find out what I was doing and he'd say, gee, what are you doing? So when are you going to find time for work? All you're doing is your search. And I'd find information. I remember the day that, I can remember the day that I found, that I finally got my decree. I fought for a year just to get a copy of my decree because my parents did not receive a copy of my decree when I was born because it wasn't something that they needed, and Catholic Charities said, hold on to that form. You don't need that stuff. You just, here's the kid, no receipt. And, and it took a year to get the decree, and I can remember sitting at work the day that I got the decree, or the day that they phoned me and said, Jim, here's the name off the decree. And I just screamed out in the middle of work and just yelled and danced around and was in complete awe that not only was I was not baby boy Peters, I had Peters. I said, wow, that's great, I'm Peters. But that I was actually named, and I was Patrick Peters. And it's like, wow, I'm James Miller, I'm Patrick Peters, I'm James Miller. And I just was all over the place. And that was great, and that compelled me, and I got all this information. Most of my search and most of my notebook that I have are information from more than 2 years ago. Very little information have I compiled over the last 2 years because I've lacked the energy. I have not found the energy to search. And I get other people in the group that are pushing me along. And unless I have somebody shoving me from the back and say, Jim, go do this, or doing it for me, I don't do it. And I become extremely lax and lazy and without energy.
But you have to say that you'll search until you die.
Right, and I'll be lazy until I die. And I will be lax until I die. Right, and that's the compelling thing that keeps me from shelving it.
That's so typical of searchers. You try something, and you've got 2 or 3 things on your list, and then it all comes back negative and all dead ends, and you just sit back. I mean, you've got other commitments in your life, too. And that's typical of searchers.
But I ignored that for the first 3 years. I ignored my other commitments, and I just said, I'm going to do this and nobody else matters. My clock just went off one day and I said, that's it, going to search, and didn't stop.
Can't you sort of like set up a budget for yourself with your time? I mean, I set up a thing, I would send at least one letter a day. Now, sometimes it was 10 letters a day, but I mean, it was at least, let's say, one letter a day. So you're gonna work on your search at least half an hour, Monday through Friday, let's say at least Saturday afternoon or something, and take Sunday off. Can't you set up a schedule and attempt to stick with it?
I probably could, but I'm too lazy to do one. It's gotten bad.
It's not so
Yeah.
bad if it just goes on and
Yeah.
on, because this is my half hour for the search.
Mm-hmm. That's a good idea.
But he doesn't have to search, he's gotta go to work every day, but he doesn't have to search. He doesn't have to set a schedule if he
But he
doesn't
said
want
he
to.
does.
I do. I have to. I cannot go the rest of my life not knowing who I look like and not knowing who I am.
If he's ready to do it, he'll do it. That's how I feel about many things.
Yeah.
Right now, you're not doing it for whatever reason, I don't know. But when you're ready to start to proceed, you'll proceed.
Yeah.
Don't lose that hint that you got, though.
Yeah,
No,
but meanwhile,
no,
write it down.
definitely not.
Put
No.
it somewhere prominent.
Yeah.
This is what I'm gonna do as soon as I get the energy back.
I think part of the reason that my energy has been so drained and that I don't have the drive and ambition that I used to have is because I'm getting all the negative things back. If I could just grasp to one piece of legitimate information from all the lies, if I could just have one piece of something that I researched, it came back and said, yes, this woman did go to school at this place from X time to X time. Even though that's all I have, just to have my sanity back, to think that I'm not crazy in what I'm doing and that some part of this whole twisted thing is real. If it could just be real in one point, that might put me over the hump. And that might give me the push on the back and keep me going and propel me in the right direction. I really feel that that's probably what's restraining me, is not having anything.
You get tired of all the negative answers.
Yeah, I legitimately have gone 5 years and feel no farther ahead than I did when I started.
Do you have your original birth certificate?
I have had someone read it to me.
I mean, but you got the information on it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
whatever. I don't care how you got it.
Right,
but you got
right.
the
Yes, I've had it read to me. I don't have a copy of it.
But it still might be wrong.
Right, right. I could go and pay. They did not have that for me. For one reason or another, my source did not have that for me, just name.
Didn't, you know, on the subject of procrastination, we had a young member in our search group who was, just into her 30s. And she found her birth father, she looked exactly like her birth father. And he just, wouldn't have anything to do with her. And she, practicing good searcher psychology, thought, well, I'll just sit back and give him time to get used to this. And, I give him time to come to grips with this reality. And he died of a heart attack in his early 50s. And, you just never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it doesn't pay to wait. You can do it today.
I just brainstormed another idea here that we've used a couple of times. There's a service out of California that will give you a listing of all the people with that last name in the United States. It costs about $35.
I've done that. Mhm.
How dependable is that?
Well, we've had 2 reunions do it.
See, the problem is that my last names, the names are bad names. I've done that, and that's how I found these other 2 people. That's how I found this woman living in Texas, and this other woman who had been living in Wisconsin is from that type of a system. And neither of them being that person, neither of them being the right person. I've researched that name completely, but the feeling is that the names that I have are bogus names. And the only thing I truly believe is her first name, and only based on the fact that her first name is Patricia. The information I have says that her first name is Patricia, and that she named me Patrick. I am her namesake, or she is my namesake, and I was named for her. And that is
Your baptismal record.
right. But
Because if you see that, really, I'm a priest. I'm a Catholic priest.
Ooh.
Yell at me, don't throw it.
yikes! And here I've been going through this whole bit.
You can be sure of that. You can be sure that they would never lie on the baptismal register, because they don't let you see that usually.
Right.
But it's not impossible to see.
Right.
But it would never be.
Right.
We guarantee.
That's the only true piece of information that I really feel that has any substance. Is Patricia. So basically, my mother.
Like a logbook, you mean, where it's handwritten in the log. Not the one they type up for you.
Right, exactly.
The log.
The actual register. Well, it depends if he was baptized in the hospital.
Holy name probably is Catholic Charities. Well, probably holy name.
And you should go back to.
I'm sorry? Well, I'm sorry.
I said another piece of advice, you should go back to church.
Yes, thank you. You and my mother would get along well.
Like that woman, do you have that address of the registry or not the registry, but the...
No, I don't have it with me, but give me your name and I'll send it to you.
Okay, thanks.
The only thing is watch out for the ones from Pennsylvania. If you submit a couple,
Okay, I
they're
called,
ripoffs.
all right, I called that.
No, I haven't. I haven't. It's never been suggested, that's funny. That made sense.
Union Registry. You tried sounding.
That makes sense, right.
Comes got information that, as I run it for 5 years, comes
That's
got
true.
information I know that isn't in Soundex.
That's a good idea
I
also.
can't put it in Soundex.
How do you con the people into getting you to look at that log?
Well, Jim is a very articulate young man, I'm sure he can convince someone.
Yeah.
Were you baptized in the hospital or in the church? Where did your baptismal certificate say?
At the top of it, actually, I have two. I have an amended that also shows Holy Name Cathedral is what's said at the top of my Holy Name Cathedral.
Weren't you baptized at the orphanage?
Now they can go.
Yeah, I'm a Catholic Charities baby. I was baptized in holy name too. We all
Or
were.
they had somebody from over.
That's
They-
Holy name.
They
Is that
did
it? They
in the
came over?
orphanage, but they had somebody from over from Holy Name.
Yeah, they got them there. But everybody there knows.
What I was told is they used a nun and a social worker used to go over to church in Louisville. And they would go to church on Monday. Every Monday was baptismal day. And they would go over and they would take one would take 2 babies, the other one would take 2 babies. And then the priest would lead them in the back of the church and they baptized those 4. And then next Monday they'd come over. And this woman was the social worker. Was godmother to all the children that were born from like 53 to like 67.
I have my baptism was in St. Mary's in the my adoption was finalized 7 months after I was born. And several days later, I was baptized at St. Mary's. And I have a copy of that entry. Is there any way of telling whether that was a conditional baptism when I was actually baptized at St. Mary's Hospital or a nearby church earlier?
It has to be noted because you can only be baptized once. And so with most adoptees, when you are baptized at birth, what will be recorded in church later will simply be recorded as the phrase is ceremonies supplied. This is not even a conditional baptism because you can only be baptized once. But if you were adopted, ceremonies supplied.
Supply?
Supplied. In
Oh,
other
they
words, you're
supply
having a
us the-
ceremony.
Yeah,
But
they
the
go
actual
through the.
baptism is already taken place.
Gotcha.
But if you were adopted before your baptism, you probably were baptized under your adopted name.
That's true.
Right.
But since
I was.
7 months had elapsed, and it's likely that since I was born at St. Mary's Hospital, they wouldn't let me go out 7 months.
You were probably baptized under your real name. And that's what I'm saying. That the record of your original baptism before you were adopted has to be accurate. There would be, I would be, stake my last dollar on it, that it would ever be changed. Because you're baptized, you know, they wouldn't go back and re-edit the original register. They'll do it to they'll give you an amended certificate from the church where the ceremony was applied, but the original one will be authentic. That's what I'm looking for.
Although, I got it by baptism certificate from Holy Name Cathedral, and it had the correct, by that time I already knew my name, you know, I had done the search, so I knew what it was supposed to say, and it said the right thing. It had the, you know, the typed up one the church sent me,
Right.
had my correct name on it.
First name.
Yes. I knew it was correct because I finished the search, and I wanted to see what the
Your
certificate
first,
said. My
first
birth name.
last name?
Yeah. Well, but see, I asked for it though, I
Under that name.
yeah, I asked for it under my birth name. I said, please send me,
Right.
no.
But that I've done over the phone. I know that document exists because I've done that over the phone.
It said, please send me the baptismal certificate out and wrote my original name.
Well, it's very unusual because the church people, the secretary tend to be worse than And especially if you've been baptized along with other adoptees, they have a separate section. And they'll know you're an adoptee, and they're told not to give that information out.
Red
That's why you
flag.
have to be very inventive. That's why you have to go in and make up a story. That's why
Or make a scene.
very creative.
Because I supplied her with the name, maybe that's why she supplied me with the certificate. Because I gave her the name that I was baptized under. Maybe that's why.
When it says ceremony supply, does it say the name of the church or the place where the original baptism took place?
In the register, not on your certificate.
Okay, in the register it will say.
Well, that would depend, that's a very individual thing. Some priests you go in, they'll get very upset, no. Others are very understanding. It's all individual, there's no rule. Because it's very, nobody really knows, is it a legal document or isn't it? And nobody's ever challenged that. So it's you have a lot of leeway if you have, if you don't.
That's probably where you could use the separation of church and state, though. Morally, it's something that the church should do for me to get me to come back to the church. So, morally. Yeah.
I hate writing letters, and that's why everything is delayed, but have you ever tried just putting letters in the genealogical helper, and there are newspaper columns, and just saying, I don't know what you would really say, but stay away from the name and looking for a woman.
In newspaper, I've done.
There are columns.
There's a special section for current missing people.
Okay, no, that I haven't done.
Genealogical columns. I'm trying to get the book that lists newspapers that do that. I've sent for it, but a lot of that.
I've done a lot with local media.
Out of the
that type of
area
thing.
into
Yeah.
other areas.
Me and Oprah are like this. Yeah.
Unsolved mystery.
Yeah. Someone else. I have run out. I'd like to hear someone else with something to say.
Theory that I just like to throw out because I've become increasingly.
Have you tried Unsolved Mysteries?
And that is, of the search consultants I know, or of the group leaders that I know, people who stay in the adoption movement the longest are the ones who have either a hard search and search for years, or who have unsuccessful reunions. No, that's just my experience. And there's
Well, I find
everybody else like that.
I find a lot of people in our group that have unsuccessful reunions. You just don't see them anymore, or it is so terrible or so bad that they don't come back.
They don't want to hear the good ones either.
Yeah, they don't, and it hurts them because they'll come back, and obviously part of the first part of or the second part of our meeting is to hear, who was found the previous month and to hear your happy story. And too many of the people that have had bad experiences, well, I don't think want to hear that anymore and end up not coming back again and don't stay with us.
But in that, the people who I think, at least this is the opinion I've got, the people who have had successful reunions happening are afraid to come back and make everybody else jealous.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Really? I don't think.
For that first one, they didn't see that response.
Yeah, it's funny how many people you don't see after they've completed their search, good or bad. There are a lot of people that you just plain lose. Yeah. That's probably why I've missed one meeting in the last 5 years. Probably for that reason, I need it.
One thing that I've noticed with people in our group that kind of hang on and have had successful reunions is that the people that stay pretty involved, don't just show up, but seem to have said to me, and I felt it myself, that they're still working out a lot of pain and going through a lot of anguish and talking about it. And I know Jim and I are both on our own speakers bureau that goes and speaks to various groups around Chicago. And by talking about it and just continually talking it out and explaining it and getting a lot of feedback from people, it helps you deal with the pain that you have inside. And I think that's, I know our president, Barb Gagnon, says that's one thing that really helps her to keep going, is that she's still dealing with a lot of problems.
It's therapy, and we're getting paid for the therapy instead of paying someone else for the therapy. So.
One thing that, Jim's talk was titled Brick Walls, is what happens when you run into a brick wall? Not necessarily in a search, because it seems like a lot of people here are interested in the search, but as far as finding somebody and them rejecting it, and there's nothing you can do about it, or that there's some unresolved communication between you and other people, or somebody's dead, or it's just all of a sudden that's it. You can't go any farther. How do you deal with that? Jim's running this issue.
No, thank you, Jay.
I found my mother 5 years ago, and for 12 months, I called her up like every month, first of the month. And after 12 months, you know, she never returned my calls or anything, so I just gave up. I mean, it was hopeless. She was not going to see me. And the only thing that I have really hard problems with is that one of my dear friends has got a really great reunion, okay? And I have a real hard time dealing with her reunion because I'm jealous. And that's what I mean, you can, first I said it was anger, then I said it was hurt, and it's not, it's neither one of them. I'm just damn jealous. I want what she's got, or what he's got. And I have a real hard time dealing with that, but I have sometimes when she calls, I have to literally say, I can't talk to you today. I have to I'll call you tomorrow, because today I'm jealous. Tomorrow I'll be sane, but today I'm jealous. And I don't want to talk to you about it, you know. So I have to do things like that. That's the only way I can handle it, because I can't change my situation, and I certainly would not want to change hers.
But you're honest and you recognize it.
Yes, but that doesn't help it go away.
No, of course it doesn't, I realize that.
You
She
know.
still wants to see your friend.
Oh, yeah, she doesn't
She
really
doesn't
know
do
I'm
it to
jealous
her.
of her.
She
No.
doesn't do it to her.
Oh,
And a
no.
lot of times,
No.
people that have a bad taste in our group, and we're hearing the good news, they look on the person spouting out their good news with almost hatred. Don't you see how what you're saying hurts us?
Oh, I think that's,
I mean,
Oh,
this is
no,
their
I
attitude.
rejoice in her. I rejoice in her.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is,
There are some
I'm
that
jealous.
rejoice and
I'm
jealous,
jealous.
and there's that
hearing the good news keeps you encouraged to make that brick wall
Yeah,
move.
that's true. That's true. And hearing that other people are having success sometimes does help.
One of the bits of good advice someone gave to me is, if you think the search is bad, it was almost like yours, just wait till there's a reunion. You know? That's when it gets tough.
Right, that's when this all starts.
And I mean, I found my grandmother dead, and I had a successful reunion, but it's a lot of work.
Sure.
And I mean, after a few years, you know, traveling to South Dakota isn't glamorous. I mean, other people find people in big cities. I've got Chamberlain, South Dakota. I mean, it takes a commitment to say, I'm going to take 1 week of my vacation time to travel to South Dakota to see my relative. And then you sit there and mark on a calendar when you'll call. And I mean, when the razzle-dazzle wears off, I mean, you really have to put in some effort.
Sure.
And I don't think everybody wants to do that.
But you have to accept that responsibility before you even do it. If you can't accept that responsibility, then you have got no business searching. I know. That's where the groups come in, though. They make you think of that.
Except that I think the problem with everybody's psyche is that there is no spot for birth parents or adoptees to fit. There's no cards at Hallmark makes. There's no national holiday. There's no, you know, my
There's
birth
no
mother said,
Mother's
"You want me?
Day card."
Can I call you mom?" Because I wouldn't like you to call me mom. You know, well, you're not mom. You know, and it just she doesn't fit anywhere. My birth father doesn't fit anywhere. My half brothers and sisters don't fit anywhere in the normal mindset of a family. And you know, every time I buy a present for my birth mother, it's like, I can't really get her something like this because she wasn't there. You know, it was like looking at. I was talking to somebody before about Mother's Day cards. You know, thanks, Mom, for being there with all the plans. You know, thanks for giving me life. There is no card that says thanks for giving me
There
life.
are
And, you know,
Southern California has an artist.
Everything is in Southern California.
Cards for the birth, for the adoption triad.
Well, what do you expect? To the uterus that bore me?
Go ahead, Lenny.
Years ago, and my first Mother's Day card from her was just absolutely wonderful. I still visualize it. It was one of these things that, you know, if you open up this way, it goes up this way, long, and it said, "Happy Mother's Day, ... from too far away." And, you know, it's just like that 4-hour trip between us is just too much, and that's all she had to say. And then love, self-esteem. And I treasure that more than
Sure.
anything else she's ever said.
The thing of it is, you know, we're 42 years old, we're still back with crayons and the paper. You get a piece of construction paper, you make your own, and we're back to that point.
You know, we like to talk about how we're different. You know, we're different from normal people. But we have the same basic emotions: anger, jealousy, anxiety, loneliness. Those things we share with everybody else. They may not understand that. But part of this is owning the feeling we have. You know, being conscious of the jealousy. Well, today I'm jealous, you know, of that. There's health in that.
Yeah. I think
Whereas,
so too.
and that other people could understand that, and your jealousy is no different from somebody else's jealousy about something else, and that's it. I don't mean to discount the special features of our life, but I do believe we do all share the same human emotions.
Yeah, we just split it for different other things.
Yeah.
Than what normal people do. I mean, normal people do not begrudge a mother rubbing her son's back. You know, normal people don't do that. But an adoptee seeing a birth mother doing it to her son, that she, you know, that he found her or whatever a year ago, that's a bigger thing. When he's accepted and you're not. Well, that's jealousy. You know.
It's true, but there are also appalling dysfunctional families out there that have nothing to do with adoption. I'm not discounting our special needs or our special features of our life. I just don't like to see us get into feeling too sorry for ourselves, or think we don't share humanity with everybody else.
Well, I've had feelings like she's had, because my reunion wasn't total. Both my parents were dead, and then all my half-brothers and sisters don't want to talk to me because they don't want to dishonor their mother's name. So consequently, well, it's true, I'm 58 years old, you know. But anyway, but the point is, I didn't have a totally successful reunion. And I tell you, someone will tell me on the telephone about, oh, I just met my brothers and my sisters, and they'll go on and on about, I wish it were me.
Yeah,
I really do. I'm glad it's them, but I sure wish I didn't get that.
The telling didn't bother me. It was seeing that touching.
Yeah.
That's what got me.
Yeah.
But that's not bad.
No.
That's good, because you finally, you then realize what you were cheated out of.
Yeah.
And then you can see that these emotions, this anger and jealousy, they're not bad. This is a normal reaction. It doesn't make you abnormal, it makes you normal. Because you finally realize this is what you missed, that you had a right to. And because of circumstance or whatever, you were robbed of it. And so it's only normal.
Yeah.
I agree. You agree that. Yeah, well, maybe there's a little bit of grief in there too. Sure. Jealousy didn't seem like it was the proper word to put.
I wanted to ask a question to everybody here. Do we all wish that we were normal, that we weren't sitting at the Marriott O'Hare? That we had this all past us and we were getting on with our lives, as a friend of mine says.
Get on with your life.
And until you are connected to that one person, until you touch that person, that hope never will be filled.
Right.
I think you're right. No matter how much money you have in your adopted family.
That's true.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I want to say, I just found out I was adopted. I'm 41 years old. I found out 6 months ago.
Wow.
And
Welcome.
I know the universe let me find out when I'm supposed to find out. You know, so I mean, I can look at it that way. I'm glad that my parents are alive, even though we haven't talked about it. I'm glad that I found out by accident. They didn't tell me. But also, I got in the last 15, especially the last 5 to 10 years. I work 80 hours a week. I mean, I love my job, and I've raised the stakes on my job to the point where I work that much. This has given me the opportunity to say, wait a minute, there are more important things in my life than my job. For the first time, I can say I have a different priority. Now, it's hard to make that space, you know, to suddenly say to the job, excuse me, you know, I'll see you later. But I've told people at work, and And my job is traveling all over the country, and the president of the organization said, well, I mean, they paid for the ticket here because I had to work in Chicago. They said, you know, anything you want to do, even if we have to go find the city and work in that city so you can go there, just do it. You know, if you need to take off, and we're working in Florida, just take the rest of the week
You have
off.
employment applications.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where do we sign up for this, you know?
And then I had a friend at work that I told, and I was reluctant to find out, you know, any information about St. Petersburg. I just found out I was born there. I didn't realize that until recently. And she said, if you don't call, I'm going to call. And she called and found a support group in St. Petersburg for me. And then I called. But she helped me that call reluctance to kind of get started. So I find that it's okay. I mean, it's painful, but that's okay. There's a line out of 1,000 Clowns that said, you know, the sneaky, subtle, important reason why we were born a human being and not a chair is so we can feel emotions. And I love the fact that there is a group like this to come to also. Not only the support group in Washington, but well, it would be even tougher if there was not a place where you can come and people, I mean, I go to a lot of conferences and they don't talk about things like this. I mean, they don't have emotions. They aren't out there with tears in their eyes because they aren't talking about things that are important. Not really. So I'm glad that this is here. I'm glad y'all are here. And I feel it's going to be okay. My birth mother would be 73. I'm going to search for her. She may be alive and she may not be. It's okay. Whatever I find out, it has given me a chance to know why I'm a human being and not a machine that works at an office all day.
We all wish you luck.
Thank you.
We have a lady in our search group who found out she was adopted when she was 65.
Yeah.
And she went to apply for her
Yeah.
passport. And she found and had found all kinds of relatives, and it's really kind of a
Glad to
miracle.
know there's someone older than
Yeah.
me.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Remember in our group that was 50 when you
That's good.
when you found out.
I was thinking maybe I was the only
You
one
might
that
want
wasn't
to
told.
talk to Leo Martin, Sue Martin's husband who's here. He's doing the One Media one. He found out at 42.
Okay,
that
good.
he was
I was
adopted.
wondering, I'm glad you told me that, because I hadn't really, everybody, you know, someone said they found out at 12 and everyone went, oh, and I went, so, thanks.
There's a record in Tacoma, Washington. The adoptee was 72 years old. He said, I'm going to search, but I know they won't be alive. The mother was 93. She was in a nursing home, and she said, bring that boy over.
That's good.
I had an 80-year-old birth mother call me a couple weeks ago. She's 80, her son is something like 56, I can't remember when he was born, but 80-year-old birth mother. She has nobody to leave her money to, folks.
I can't pass for that all, no way, no how.
That's what she told me.
Jim, your mother wants to
I was gonna say, Mom, you had something to say? Here's your big chance.
People are saying about how they feel about being adopted. As a young child growing up, I'm the seventh of a family of 8 or 10, depends on what year we were counting. You know, we always felt like when we adopted, you know, it was like, would our real mother really treat us this way?
Yeah.
And we could, you know, think about it and say, no, she's not our real mother, you know. I mean, when you heard her talk about all of her labors and how, you know, what it was like to deliver us, it was like, yeah, she must be our real mother. I mean, we would jump at the chance for somebody to say, yes, you were adopted. So I can understand some of the feelings that you people are really having. It's just like, okay, that wasn't my real mother. Now I got to find somebody who is. And then when you have a wall thrown at you, or you bump against, they say, the brick wall, it must be very devastating to think, oh, I wasn't living with my real mother. No, I'm getting against a brick wall. But it's something that people who, you know, live with their natural family also have some of these same feelings. You wonder if you're living in a fantasy. You know, as a child, you think that maybe this is kind of a fantasy growing up. At least that's how I felt about it.
I think all children around the age of 11 to 13 have that adopted family. I heard 2-year-old now, I think she gave a little bit of a clue. I don't remember what it was. She looked like she was a little bit of a trans herself and was pulling back from me. And I just said to her, honey, are you imagining that you might be adopted?
And you know, she just said, yeah, how'd you know? I said, well, it's sort of the age. But for those who, and she's not, you know, she's my flesh and blood, and she knows that. She's seen all the pictures. She knows she's not. But for those who go through that fantasy, and then they find out they are. You know,
It's a subliminal.
we were talking about the, you know, goodness gracious, Alzheimer's, right? Okay. The adjustment of the adolescent and whether or not maybe minor search would be right, because the adolescent goes through such turmoil, and that's where it hit me, because when she was in enough turmoil as it was, and then she's not. But then the adolescents go through that turmoil, and then they are, and then there's this void, and then there's this wonder.
You know, G. Payton said
All these
that-
fantasies really could be. You know, my child had fantasies, but she knew they were fantasies, and that's all. But the adoptee's fantasy is more. I'm a brick. I came in here because I have searches that I'm working on that I got with brick walls. That's not in here. Okay. Sometimes I feel maybe you think I don't belong.
No. No.
But the adoptee who, you know, finds out that these fantasies might be real, then it could be very, very scary.
Well, you know, Gene Payton believes that all adoptees should search and find before the age of 12.
Did she really?
And I mean,
That's
you
a
know,
disputable.
Yeah, well, I mean, she just thinks
Very
that-
disputable.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Whether she thinks that or not, is that disputable?
No, no, that theory is, yeah.
Okay, whether the theory is good or not is disputable.
Right.
She has a right.
Oh, definitely. No, I'm not questioning that.
Well, she's one of a kind, let's face it, you
And I'm
know.
just wondering maybe that there is validity to that.
There very well might.
she says that you should do it before you reach puberty.
Where's Emma Belardi this time, by the way? Is she ill or something that she isn't here? Emma
Oh, I
Belardi?
haven't seen her, you're right. I haven't seen her, so I asked her.
Ah, okay. Well, anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming and listening. I didn't necessarily want this to be a support group for Jim, but more than I hoped everybody got something out of this and everybody can come away from it and think that the workshop was at least somewhat worthwhile. So, thank you for being attentive.